right, welcome to a frozen episode of Twisted and Mysterious.
It's pretty cold.
I'm pretty sure everybody in the whole country, except maybe South Florida, is cold.
It was like 8 degrees this morning, which is not something that happens here. I'm not even sure that's an actual temperature.
Yeah, that's way too cold. Luckily it's supposed to be marginally warmer tomorrow.
It's supposed to be in the 50s. I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Well, one thing that was pretty funny was that Galveston got so much snow.
Yeah, Louisiana got quite a bit of snow too.
Yeah.
But...
Okay, so we have been going to Galveston our whole lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's weird to see it covered in snow.
Like, we've been there when it's kind of cold before, but we've never seen snow there before.
But since Galveston was a topic because of the weather today and the snow that they've been getting, and we love Galveston so much, I decided to cover a story that's kind of tied to Galveston. It is the story of Robert Durst.
Okay.
Do you know Robert Durst?
I don't always know their names.
He's not Fred Durst.
Well, no, I wouldn't think so.
No. I don't think he's related to Fred Durst either.
I mean, you never know.
You never know. But anyway, so Robert Allen Durst was born in New York City on April 12th, 1943, to a real estate is it magnate or magnate? When he has an E at the end.
I don't know.
You should know.
It's not a word that I really use.
So, like, you hear it, like, shipping I don't know.
It has a line over top of it, so it must be magnate.
Okay, so anyway, he was born to a real estate magnate named Seymour Durst and Bernice Herstein. He was the oldest of 4 children. Fun fact, his paternal grandfather was originally a Jewish tailor who immigrated from Austria-Hungary in 1902, and he went from being a tailor in Austria-Hungary to becoming a real estate manager and developer who originally founded the Durst Organization in 1927, and their family fortune is now estimated to be about $8.1 billion, according to Forbes.
All right.
So going from a tailor
Mm-hmm.
to immigrating to the United States, and now his family is worth $8 billion.
How do we become billionaires?
Oh no, I think we have to immigrate.
Well, let's get out of here then.
So Robert and his siblings grew up in Scarsdale, which if you watch Friends, then you know that the taxes are a little higher, but they supposedly have a great school system. Robert's mother committed suicide when Robert was 7. She jumped off the roof of the family home. Robert is said to have told people that he witnessed this happen, that his father actually walked him over to a window where he could see his mother standing on the roof. In a New York Times interview, however, Robert's brother Douglas denies that this happened and said Robert didn't witness it at all. And apparently Robert and Douglas were put into counseling for their sibling rivalry in the early 1950s.
All right.
And that just seems like really extraordinary to me because, like, when you think about, like, the 1950s, like, mental health disorders were, like, widely, like, overlooked or, like, passed off as other things.
I guess it depends on how severe the sibling rivalry was.
I guess so. But I've been thinking, I guess it was overlooked unless you're a woman and you probably needed a lobotomy for PMS.
Yeah. I know I need one.
For sure. So in 1953, when Robert was 10, a psychiatrist reported that he had personality decomposition and possibly even schizophrenia. But regardless of his mental health issues, Robert went on to Scarsdale High School. He was described as a loner. In 1965, he graduated from I'm going to pronounce it Lehigh. It's Lehigh. Anyway, Lehigh University with his bachelor's. It's his.
Yes.
With a bachelor's degree in economics. He had been on the varsity lacrosse team, and he was the business manager of the school newspaper, which I would, I guess, expect nothing less from a family that's worth $8 billion. Those seem like very, like, rich kid things to do.
I guess they either do that or they do nothing.
Yeah. He enrolled in a doctoral program at UCLA, but withdrew and went back to New York in 1969. I was wondering if the free love movement was just too much for him. In the early 1970s, Robert moved to Vermont and opened a small health food store called All Good Things. He closed it in 1973 because his father convinced him to move back to New York. So, fast forwarding just a minute, in 1992, so this is like 22 years later, or I guess not 19 years later, 20-ish years later, Robert's father decided to pass on tradition and appointed Robert's younger brother Douglas as the new CEO of the Durst organization. So usually the firstborn would take over the company, but due to Robert's quote-unquote inappropriate conduct, which...
I was going to say, it probably also has a lot to do with their behavior.
Yeah. I'm guessing maybe it was all of the horrible things that we're about to hear about, or maybe he ate at a deli instead of going to the Ritz.
Maybe.
But he was passed over. And Robert was livid, even though he hated the company and he didn't even want to run it in the first place. But he was like, this is my birthright and it's supposed to be mine. And so he sued his family, and his family eventually bought him out of the family trust for a cool $65 million in 2006. Also, unsurprisingly, he became estranged from his family.
Yeah. But at least he had $65 million.
Absolutely. So now rewinding. So we're going to go back to Vermont in the 1970s. Robert Durst meets Kathleen McCormick in 1971. She was a dental hygienist, and he asked her to move in with him after only 2 dates, which she did in January of 1972. When he returned to New York at the behest of his father, Kathleen went with him, and the two were married on April 12th, 1973. And I am just making the connection that was his birthday too. It was his 30th birthday. So Kathleen started medical school at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in the Bronx, hoping to become a pediatrician. When she disappeared in 1982, she was in her final year of school. Kathleen was last seen on the evening of January 31st, 1982. She showed up unexpectedly at a dinner party at her friend's apartment in Newtown, Connecticut. The friend's name was, or is, I don't know if she's still alive, Gilbert Najemi, or I don't know how to say it because I couldn't find a pronunciation for it. It reminded me of Kathy Najemi, but it's an A instead of an I.
Yeah.
I tried to look for it, but I couldn't find it. But she said that Kathleen seemed upset and was wearing red sweatpants, which was weird for her to dress so casually in public. Kathleen received a call from Robert and left for her cottage in South Salem, New York. Now, it's worth noting that at this time, Kathleen and Robert were not living together. Robert had been dating Prudence Farrow, who is Mia Farrow's sister, for 3 years, and he and Kathleen were living in separate apartments.
Okay.
I know, just casually. Well, I guess maybe not casually because it was 3 years, but, you know, just dating Mia Farrow's sister. It's totally cool. But I guess if you have $65 million. And I don't know how much $65 million is. Well, I guess that was in 2006, so it's probably
approximately the same
more, but not a bunch more. I don't know. Depending on how we look, I mean, inflation's been crazy lately.
Yeah.
So it could be like a way lot more, but I don't know. So anyway, Robert admitted that he and Kathleen had an argument that evening, but that he had taken her to the train at Katona Rail Station in New York, and he had a drink with a neighbor, and that he had spoken to Kathleen on the phone in his Manhattan apartment later that night. Kathleen and her friend, Gilbert, were supposed to meet the following day at the Lions Gate pub in Manhattan, but Kathleen didn't show up. And her friend, I'm just going to keep calling her friend because that French name is killing me, called the police several times over the next several days. Robert reported Kathleen missing later that week. A doorman at the building of, I don't know if it was like their apartment that they had shared or like the one he was living in or something, but a doorman said that he possibly saw Kathleen on February 1st, which was the day after she was last like indisputably seen. But it was from the back and it was at a distance, so he couldn't be sure that it was her. So for sure she was last seen on January 31st. Additionally, 3 weeks before her disappearance, Kathleen went to the Jacobi Medical Center in the Bronx to be treated for facial bruises. She admitted to a friend that Robert had beaten her up, but she did not press charges. And I'm not sure if she officially filed for divorce. I don't think that she did. But she did ask Robert for a divorce with a $250,000 settlement. I figure well, I don't know. This wasn't before he was bought out of his trust. So he didn't have $65 million yet. I was going to say that's like nothing if you have $65 million. But
right, so he also didn't have it when he was dating Mia Farrow's sister, though.
Oh, that's true. But I guess if your family is worth, I mean, I know they weren't worth $8 billion in the 80s, but they're worth a lot of money, I imagine. So instead of granting her request for a divorce, he instead canceled her credit cards, removed her from their joint checking account, and didn't pay her tuition to her medical school because he's a stand-up guy.
He's real cute.
Yep. Super fun. So after her disappearance, Robert offered a $100,000 reward for the return of his wife, which he later reduced to $15,000, which is a lot of money to go down on the price.
Yeah.
One of Kathleen's friends and her sister broke into her apartment in South Salem after learning of her disappearance and found her home ransacked. There was unopened mail, and some of her belongings were in the garbage. On February 4th, Robert received a phone call from Kathleen's supervisor at the medical school to say that Kathleen hadn't shown up, but had called him on February 1st to say that she was sick. And no one knows if Kathleen actually made that phone call or if it was somebody else calling to say that it was her.
Who else would it be?
I don't know. Mia Farrow's sister?
Maybe.
Let's hope not.
Yeah.
Who knows? Robert seemed to have a lot of, I mean, I didn't see where he had a lot of affairs or anything, but he had a lot of female friends.
Yeah.
So who knows? 8 years after her disappearance, Robert officially divorced Kathleen on the grounds of spousal abandonment. Her family asked that she be declared legally dead in 2016. In August 2019, Kathleen's sister Carol filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Robert, but it was dismissed because, quote, she waited too long to sue.
All right.
Yeah. So in 2021, the Westchester County District Attorney announced that Kathleen's disappearance was being reclassified as a murder and would be reinvestigated. And while Robert was on trial for another murder, he was officially charged with Kathleen's murder on October 22nd, 2021. Only 40 years later. So then next is...
They waited too long to sue.
That's right. And as far as I could tell from the things that I read, they never did find her. They haven't found a body or anything. So then next we have Susan Berman. And Susan had been a friend of Robert since his time at UCLA in the 60s. She was the daughter of David Berman, who was a major figure in the Jewish American organized crime world.
Yeah.
Did you even know that was a thing?
I didn't.
I didn't either. I
guess it's not, what's the word?
Limited?
I guess, limited to, the Italians or anything like that.
Or the Irish. Or
but, it's not limited to one sort of ethnicity.
Yep. But yeah, there's apparently a Jewish American organized crime world. He was part of an illegal gambling ring in Minneapolis during the Depression and later took over the Flamingo Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yes.
Susan was found murdered execution style in her home in Benedict Canyon in Los Angeles on December 24th, 2000. Her neighbors noticed her door was open and her dog was loose. Beverly Hills Police received a letter postmarked December 23rd containing Susan's address and the word cadaver. And so I guess that's, I don't know, was evidence, or I don't know if it led them there or I don't know. Yeah. But either way. And also, I didn't write it down, I don't know why, but the envelope, Beverly was spelled wrong. It was spelled with an E after the L.
Yeah.
So, there was an extra E in there. So Robert was in Northern California just days before Susan was killed and flew from San Francisco to New York the night before Susan's body was found. He had also apparently recently sent her $50,000 in 2 separate transactions, but I didn't see for what. He did admit...
For funsies.
Yeah. What I'm guessing, so he did admit that he paid Susan, and he faxed the investigators a copy of her deposition in Kathleen's case from 1982, but he wouldn't answer any other questions. I'm wondering if, I guess let me get to the next part and then I'll go back. So Robert gave a deposition in 2005 saying that Susan had called him not long before her murder to tell him that the Los Angeles Police Department wanted to ask her questions about Kathleen's disappearance. And so I don't know if he was like paying her to like not talk to them, maybe. Did it go off? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I don't know if like it was like hush money.
Right.
But no one knows if like the police, if this actually happened, if the police actually did call her to set up an interview. Mm-hmm. But it would give him cause to murder her and make it look like a mob hit, since her dad was a mob guy, if she knew something about Kathleen's disappearance, since she had known him since before he had ever met Kathleen. And so now here's where Galveston comes into the story. Okay. So Robert's sister Wendy, so I guess he wasn't estranged from everybody. Well, I don't know. Maybe this was before. Later? That's later. See, that's what happens when you go back and forth. Yeah. You forget what happens.
Don't skip ahead.
Yeah. Brains then we all get confused. Yeah. So Robert's sister Wendy let Robert know that the investigators were reopening Kathleen's case. So Robert went into hiding and moved to Galveston. And do you want to guess what his disguise was?
I can't even imagine.
A deaf-mute woman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gone there.
Nope. So this part of the story seemed like vague from the things that I was reading, but as I was reading different accounts, it seems that on November 15th, 2000, a landlord in Galveston received a phone call from a man saying that he was the aide to a deaf-mute woman named Dorothy Signer. And I'm assuming he was calling to rent a place for this woman to live.
Yeah.
So Dorothy Signer was to be neighbors with a man named Morris Black.
See, like, I was thinking about bad disguises. Like, I've been rewatching Twin Peaks because David Lynch died.
Oh, okay.
And they put on disguises to go to this casino that's, like, over the border in Canada. Mm-hmm. And Agent Cooper just wears sunglasses. And Big Ed puts on, like, this big curly wig and a mustache. And I'm just like...
Or
they're terrible disguises.
Or like on Psych when they cut the disguise in half and
they have to walk sideways.
Yes, so. One of them wears one half and the other one wears the other half.
But yeah, like I was just thinking about like a bad disguise, not a deaf mute woman.
Yeah, he went all out. So, okay, so he was going to be neighbors with a man named Morris Black. And Morris had a kind of not great history. He was born in 1929 to parents who suffered from mental illness, and all of his siblings went into foster care. The siblings also accused their father and Morris of sexual abuse. He moved around a lot, and in October of 1997 was arrested in South Carolina after he disputed a $50 phone bill and threatened to blow up the South Carolina Electric and Gas Company. Which, you know, it's $50.
Yes.
Just,
I mean, $50 was a little more back then, but still, it's just $50.
$50. And he probably did run up the bill. So eventually in October 1998, he moved to Galveston, and in November of 1999, he moved into the last home he would occupy on Avenue K. And so now it's 2001, and Morris Black meets a man named Ted Hanley, who runs a Galveston homeless shelter called the Jesse Tree. In August of that year, what I'm kind of presuming happens is that Hanley tells Black he needs more money to help run the shelter. And Black tells Hanley that he knows a wealthy person who might be able to provide him with a $50,000 low-interest loan to help the Jesse Tree buy, the thing just said real estate, so I don't know if they needed a bigger building or more buildings or whatever. So this was on a Friday. The following Monday, Hanley is approached by a man at the Jesse Tree wearing glasses with lenses that are almost completely covered in tape. And this man is also pretending to be deaf and mute.
Yes.
And once, but apparently not a woman. I guess he's a woman when he's at his house.
I guess.
But I don't know. It's so bizarre. So once the two were somewhere private, the man says that he can speak and says that he was only pretending because, quote, of his hatred for women, ?
That makes a whole bunch of sense.
Makes absolutely all the sense.
That's why I don't talk.
You know why I did that? Because of my hatred for women.
Because women are the worst.
And then I would be like, why did I say that women are the worst? So Hanley later identified the strange man as Robert Durst. But this was after murder and arrests happened.
Shenanigans.
In October of 2001, dismembered body parts were found in Galveston Bay.
Cute.
Yeah, considering, like, I get in that water.
We get there, and yeah. I mean, there's lots of things in the ocean.
That's true.
So, that's why I don't get in it.
Yeah. But, you know,
we've yet to find any body parts.
The Gulf of America is very... I was going to say very small, but...
No. Do you know how many acres that is?
It's like the whole ocean.
It's like the whole ocean.
Oh my god. Okay. So anyway.
So many acres.
It's like 600 million acres or something. Oh my gosh. Let's rewind. October 2001. Dismembered body parts were found in Galveston Bay.
Yes, we were at body parts.
Yes. And they were identified to be Morris Black. Robert Durst was arrested on October 9th, but was released on a $250,000 bail. He failed to appear at a court hearing on October 16th. Authorities realized that he had run away, and a warrant was issued for his arrest for bail jumping. On November 30th, he was caught and arrested in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. You want to guess how he was caught?
Something about a deaf-mute woman.
Not this time.
Somebody realized he was not actually a deaf-mute woman.
No. He was caught shoplifting in a Wegmans grocery store. He was caught trying to shoplift Band-Aids, a newspaper, and a chicken salad sandwich.
Now, I get that this is prior to the $65 million, but didn't he have some money?
When he was arrested for shoplifting, he had $500 in cash in his pocket.
He just did not want to pay for that stuff.
It was like, you know what? This chicken salad sandwich is not worth $3.50.
I'm just going to take it.
When police searched his rental car, they found an additional $37,000 in cash, 2 guns, the devil's lettuce, Morris Black's driver's license, and directions to our French friend's home in Connecticut.
Okay.
He had also apparently been stalking his brother Douglas. He showed up in his driveway with, like, guns and stuff. Did you get cold, Anne?
Yes.
So
it's
he
cold
was
with it off and hot with it on.
Yeah. So he was extradited back to Texas. Now it's 2003, and Robert Durst is tried for the murder of Morris Black because finally he's actually tied to something. And Durst fully admits to killing this man. But his story is that he said that Black pulled a gun on him, and in the struggle, the gun went off.
And he accidentally chopped him into pieces?
No.
And dumped him in Galveston Bay.
Yeah. No, so he shot Black in the face on accident during the struggle. And so he's claiming self-defense. And during the trial, he also admitted to accidentally
chopping him.
Not accidentally. Absolutely on purpose. Using a paring knife.
That's gross. I mean, dismemberment is gross in general, but I mean...
Paring knives are so small.
They're just little.
So I don't know what he used the paring knife for. But he used a paring knife because he also used 2 saws and an axe.
Well, I don't think a paring knife is going to go through the bone.
No.
So that would be a lot of work.
Good grief. I hope it was a really sharp paring knife. Because ours would not cut somebody into pieces.
Ours barely cut limes and things like that.
Alright. So, anyway. So he admits that he did dismember the body and dumped it into Galveston Bay. But Morris Black's head was never recovered. And so this meant that the prosecutors couldn't disprove that the struggle didn't happen.
Right.
And so since they were trying him for capital murder without the proof...
Well, of course you'd say he shot him in the part that you can't find.
Right. He was acquitted on November 11th, 2003. And it is believed that Black and Durst knew each other before Durst moved to Galveston, and that Black had possibly assisted in Kathleen's disappearance.
Okay. Which
that can't ever be proved, but it's, I guess, a theory that's floating around out there. So, I don't know, maybe he killed him because he possibly was a witness and could have, since her thing was coming back up, like, they were reinvestigating it. So, on December 21st, 2004, Durst pled guilty to bail jumping and tampering with evidence, which that was dismembering Morris Black's body. He was given a sentence of 5 years.
Yeah. That's enough.
And was given credit for time served.
We've learned, that's enough.
That's so much. So he was paroled in July 2005. The conditions were that he stayed near his home and he must receive permission for travel. I'm honestly not sure where his home was at this point. From part of the story later, I think he was living in like a condo in Houston. But in December of 2005, he made an unauthorized trip to the boarding house where he had killed Black, and then to a mall nearby. I'm guessing it was the Mall of the Mainland, because that was the one that was closest to Galveston at the time. It's not there anymore, but, I mean, the giant building is, but it's not a mall anymore. But the big dummy ran into the judge who had presided over his trial, and so he was caught violating the terms of his parole, and he was sent back to prison until March 1st, 2006.
Silly man.
I know, what a dummy. So in March 2015, a judge signed a warrant charging him with the murder of Susan Berman. At the same time, he was arrested by the FBI after he was found at the Canal Street Marriott in New Orleans. He had registered under the name Everett Ward and was wandering aimlessly in the lobby and mumbling to himself. The FBI had tracked him after he had made 2 phone calls to himself to check his voicemail. He had a .38 caliber revolver, 5 ounces of marijuana, his birth certificate and passport, maps of Louisiana, Florida, and Cuba, a flesh-toned latex mask, a fake Texas ID card, a new cell phone, and cash totaling $42,631.
Me too.
That's
what I usually have on my person.
Right. I mean, that's just like the minimum that I carry around. They also found a UPS tracking number that led them to an additional $117,000 in cash and a pair of shoes that a friend in New York had sent to him. None of my friends in New York ever send me $117,000. I'm guessing. Sorry, Whitney. You absolutely are not obligated to send us $117,000.
Isn't she though?
Maybe. Are you?
You live in New York. I think you are obligated to do so.
I don't even know if Whitney listens to us. But anyway, I'm guessing it was probably his money that was sent to him. But anyway.
And I was thinking it was the shoes. You just said they were found in a pair of shoes that was sent to them by a friend in New York. So I was thinking it was the shoes.
Okay. Bank statements also showed that he had withdrawn $315,000 in less than a month. It's believed that he planned to flee to Cuba after an HBO documentary had aired that was about him, that was called The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst.
Okay.
U.S. and Cuba have no extradition treaty, so he could have run away and never come back. After a long battle with health issue delays on his part, and Louisiana, whatever that state is called.
Whatever that place is.
Louisiana, wanting to charge him with being in the possession of a firearm and FBI firearms charges, and then the pandemic happened, and this was like long and drawn out, and there were so many like details about all of the delays that I'm not going to go into because it was so much. But on October 14th, 2021, Robert Durst was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole in the murder of Susan Berman. He was denied a new trial due to the abundance of evidence of his guilt. So one of the things that was the evidence of his guilt was, so in 2010, a movie was made called All Good Things that starred Ryan Gosling and Kirsten Dunst. Have you ever seen that?
No, but I feel like I've heard about it.
Yeah, I did. I hadn't heard of it.
Like, it sounds familiar, but I've never seen it.
So I guess the producer or director or whatever of this movie and Durst had somehow like started communicating, and so then he decided to make this documentary, The Jinx, about him. And when they were like investigating, they uncovered something where Robert Durst had written the word Beverly and had spelled it the same wrong way that had been on that envelope. So I guess that was one of the things that was like evidence of his guilt. He filed appeals, of course, because they all do.
They all do.
But he died on January 10th, 2022, before the appeals could be heard. And apparently because the appeal couldn't be heard, the conviction for Susan Berman's murder was automatically vacated. Right. Which seems a shame for her family.
Right.
He was charged with the murder of Kathleen McCormick shortly after his sentencing for Susan Berman's murder, but he died, so it never got tried. It seems like, I don't know, I guess because he can't defend himself, you can't be tried posthumously. Right. But I wish you could be. He's also suspected to be connected to the disappearances of 18-year-old Lynn Schultz from Middlebury, Vermont, and 16-year-old, wow, I think that's supposed to say Karen Mitchell from Eureka, California. Lynn Schultz had visited Durst's health food store on December 10th, 1971, and was last seen at the bus stop across the street from his store. Karen Mitchell disappeared on November 25th, 1997, and credit card receipts put Durst in Eureka on that day. I also didn't write this down, but, like, I guess he would dress up like a woman and go to the shoe store that this girl's aunt owned. And so I guess that's how he had, like, found this girl, if he was actually the person who was responsible for her disappearance. But I guess he liked to dress up as women. I don't know if they were always deaf and mute, though.
No.
And also for a time, he was believed to be the Long Island serial killer. But we know now that was Rex Heuermann. I don't know if that's how you say his name. It's spelled weird. And he was arrested for those murders in July 2023. And that is the crazy story of Robert Durst.
Crazy story of Robert Durst.
The deaf-mute woman in Galveston. Now we have to go to sleep and try to be warm.
It's difficult.
I just sleep with a heating pad.
It doesn't get warm enough for my electric blanket to really be worth anything.
Yeah. Oh well. Maybe it'll be spring soon.
I certainly hope so. I'm tired of winter already.
Me too.
If it could just be in the 50s.
And then the 60s.
Winter. I just mean for winter. Like, if we could just have, like, a 50-degree winter.
Yeah. Well, we were wearing shorts during Christmas break.
I know.
So this is not fun.
No, this is preposterous.
Yeah.
It's offensively cold, as I like to say.
Yeah. It should be against the law. It's so cold.
Yes.
All right. Well, we will see you guys next time.
And remember that people are gross and don't get murdered.
Oh, and go to visit us on social media and leave us reviews if you can on your apps.
That too.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.